I'm riding the TransAmerica bike trail from Pueblo, Colorado to Carbondale, Illinois. They call it the dreaded middle third. My lovely wife Sharon dropped me off in Pueblo. She's going to drive home. I'm going to ride my bike home. I'm going to ride across the eastern part of Colorado and then all the way across the great state of Kansas, through Missouri and over the Ozark Mountains and into Illinois. I'm going to cross the Mississippi River at Chester and then on to Carbondale. I live about 20 miles south of Carbondale. I love a bike ride that ends on your own front porch. This is Saturday, July 20th, 2019, and I'm in Pueblo, Colorado, heading east across the plains. For now, I'm following the Arkansas River, Pueblo toward Ordway. Some people think the plains are boring. There's no scenery, but eastern Colorado has a charm all its own. This is cowboy country. This is my 6th time across the plains. Every time I ride across the plains, I feel like a cowboy, riding from town to town. Instead of on a horse, I'm on my bicycle. But this is ranch country, a lot of cows. It is Sunday morning, July 21st, and this is day 2. I'm on my way to Eads. It'll be another medium day, but I stayed at the Hotel Ordway last night. But I was glad to be in a brick building and not in a tent. About 6 o'clock last evening, a big old storm rolled through eastern Colorado. There were tornado warnings, high winds, heavy rain, hail, knocked the power lines down, trees got knocked down. The shade tree's nice, but during a storm, the shade tree might land on your car. Yeah. Not too many trees out here, so when you see some shade, you gotta take advantage. If the temperature gets close to 100, one of the keys is to manage your heat, and that means cool off when you can. Find shade, drink lots of water. There's not many places to hide out here. Still day 2. A little place called Arlington. It's a nice little shady spot. I'm sure anybody that's bicycled this section of the TransAmerica route has stopped in Arlington, because it's like the only shade for miles. Arlington, it's a nice little spot. This part of the route is really about open spaces. It's a nice open stretch of road, not too many cars, and you can just ride and ride and ride. But I'm rolling across the western high plains, heading east toward Kansas. Alright, it is Monday, July 22nd, and this is day 3 out of Pueblo, and I'm headed east. Should make Kansas today. Got up real early this morning, got on the road by about 5:30. I've been fighting an east wind for the last 3 days. Anybody that thinks that the wind is always out of the west in Colorado and Kansas, it's not true. They call it the prevailing westerlies. For the last 3 days, it's been the prevailing easterlies. So yeah, the scenery hasn't really changed for the last 3 days. It's relatively flat, no trees, and it's been hot and dry and windy. But we're gonna keep going, because it's only going to get better the further east I go. Met a bike tourist this morning named John, passed me by. So yeah, I saw this prairie dog town the other day, and I saw these little prairie dogs running around, and so I stopped. I wanted to take a picture. As soon as I stopped, the head prairie dog sent out a signal. Tweet, 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 tweet. And all the other prairie dogs scattered, and by the time I got my camera ready, there was no prairie dogs to be seen. It was like a prairie dog ghost town. So I didn't get a picture of no prairie dog. Passed through Shivington. Shivington's named after an army general back in the 1860s. He's infamous for what was called the Sand Creek Massacre, another black eye in the history of our country when it comes to dealing with Native Americans. riding with this guy, John, and he said that this section of the TransAmerica route is kind of known for not good scenery and harsh conditions. And apparently, when some riders get to western Kansas and eastern Colorado, they've had enough and they're ready to call it quits. But long-distance bike touring, especially out in places like this, is as much mental as it is physical. You really have to have the right frame of mind. If you look at it like endless, boring scenery, yeah, it'll get to you. But if you look at it like stepping back in history and seeing the high western plains the way the cowboys did, it gives you a different perspective. And dealing with the wind is mental too. When you got a tough headwind, I'd say don't fight against it. Just drop down into a lower gear, pedal a little easier, go a little slower. You'll get there eventually, just a little bit later. Try to race into the wind and try to pedal hard, you're going to burn out your legs in no time. And then the wind wins. But I just crossed into Kansas a few miles back, across the state line, headed due east. Going to try to get to Leoti tonight, probably sleep at the city park. They let bicycle travelers camp there. Plus I heard there's a swimming pool. Anyways, I've got about 18 miles to go, and I've still got a tough headwind. So, time to get down the road. It's Tuesday, July 22nd, and this is day 4 from Pueblo, heading east. Got to Leoti last night, but there were no rooms at the inn, so I ended up sleeping in a park. It wasn't bad. It was quiet, it was soft grass, I had the place to myself, and it was free, so that was nice. But yeah, I'm in Central Time Zone now. As I head further east, towns get a little bit bigger, a little closer together, more farms. Still in cowboy country, western Kansas. Yeah, the scenery hasn't changed much. It's just cornfields and wheat fields as far as the eye can see. But like a cowboy, I'm just working my way across the high plains, rolling from town to town. Found some shade next to an old abandoned school. Anyway, I've been battling flat tires. Your tires pick up these little thorns, what they call goat heads, Texas tacks. And as you ride down the road, they kind of work their way into the inner tube, and about 2-3 miles down the road, you notice your tires getting soft. I had 2 flat tires this morning already. Yeah, this is one of the longest, flattest, straightest stretches of road I've ever been on. There's hardly a curve in this road. Long and straight. It's Wednesday, July 24th. It's day 5 from Pueblo, and I'm heading east. Go to Ness City. It's only about 30 miles, so I'm going to make it a short day. But I'm just creeping my way east through Kansas, Sunflower State. You know, I wouldn't recommend this section of the Trans Am as a first bike tour. It's hard. It's physically hard because of the elements, the wind, the heat, the sunshine, but it's mentally hard too. The long distances between towns, the miles and miles of unchanging scenery, and the lack of services can present a mental challenge as well. Most of the towns that you go through are definitely not tourist towns. They're ranching towns, they're working towns, they're cowboy towns. And I don't think there's a train or a bus to get on to bail out of this thing. You know, when you go on a long-distance bike tour in areas like this, you really put yourself at an inconvenience on purpose. And you can't always expect people to bail you out when things go wrong. But that's what puts the adventure in adventure cycling. Someone told me once, when you go looking for adventure, don't complain when you find it. It's Thursday, it's July 25th, and this is day 6 from Pueblo, headed east. Yesterday was a short day, I only did 30 miles. I made it to Ness City. Ness City's a pretty cool town. It's an old western town, built in the 1800s by cowboys and oilmen. Anyway, there's a big old brick building in the middle of Ness City, an old bank. They call it the skyscraper of the plains. I don't know, maybe at one time it was the tallest building west of the Mississippi. But it's a full 3 stories tall. But yeah, Kansas is a big state. I can't think about riding across Kansas. It's just too big. So I'm not focused on Kansas. I'm just focused on getting to my next town, Great Bend. It's about a 60-mile day. It's a little bit off route. The TransAmerica is supposed to go through Larned, but there's a bike shop in Great Bend that I need to go to. And with this wind, I think it's a little better way to go. And it'll get me a little further down the road for tomorrow. This is Friday, July 26th, and this is day 7. I made it yesterday to Great Bend. Great Bend is a little bit off route, but there's a bike shop. A nice little bike shop, but I had to go there to get my headset adjusted, a couple extra inner tubes, a tire. But on my way to Sterling, I'm going to pass through the Cuervera Wildlife Refuge. It's like a bird sanctuary. If they hadn't have reserved little plots of land for migratory birds, this place would be nothing but farms, and then the birds would have nowhere to land. So they set aside little plots of land. Birds know they're there. On their way through, they can stop and take a break, get a meal. It's like an interstate rest area for birds. Yeah, good idea. Crossed over the Arkansas River today. Yeah, I didn't even know it was called the Arkansas River until I was talking to this local lady. When I called it the Arkansas River, she corrected me. She said here in Kansas we call it the Arkansas River. But I guess I'm in central Kansas now, heading east. Things are getting a little greener, a little grassier, more trees. But I'm hiding here behind a wind shelter. It's just a row of trees that were planted in the 1930s to knock down the wind, maybe prevent the next dust bowl. It does provide a little break from the wind and a little bit of shade too. Trail angels. People who do unexpected things out of the kindness of their heart for no other reason, just to help other people, like me. So I was riding down the road, middle of nowhere, running out of water. Next thing you know, there's this sign. It says cold water for bikers. 2 benches, shade, and a cooler full of ice cold water. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's Saturday, July 27th, and this is day 8 of my ride from Pueblo to Carbondale. At least I hope I make it to Carbondale. That's the plan anyway. I stayed in Sterling last night, and I'm headed to Newton. Should be about a 70-mile day or so. Anyway, I'm in central Kansas. I don't think this is the touristy part of the state. I'm a bicycle tourist, and I just happen to be traveling through. But there's lots of cornfields and bean fields and wheat fields and cows and grain silos and oil rigs, oil tanks. It's central Kansas. Anyway, it's Sunday morning, July 28th, and this is day 9. Stayed at Newton last night. Tonight, I'm headed for Eureka. Should be about a 70-mile day or so. These little towns in central Kansas, they're not tourist towns. They're ranching towns, farming, oil, stuff like that. The only tourists they see are the bike tourists that come through. And that's just because it happens to be on the TransAmerica route. But what central Kansas lacks in scenery, they make up for in sunrise. Yeah, beautiful sunrise every morning. Try to put yourself back in history. The cowboys and the ranchers were here. And then came the sodbusters. And then the oilmen. And then came the bankers. Yeah, ruined everything. And as I'm traveling east across the prairies, I'm trying to recapture some of that western flavor, some of that pioneer spirit, I guess. Pioneers traveled west and made about 10-12 miles a day on foot. The scenery didn't change for weeks. And I've got maps and I know where I'm going. And I've got this whole infrastructure supporting my trip. Pioneers didn't have any of that. They were just heading west, hoping for something better. And then they got to Kansas, decided to keep going. But Kansas is a long state, and so I'm just taking it in little chunks. Just keep plugging away, making my way across Kansas. Should be in Missouri in a couple days. And then the Ozarks. Today's Monday, July 29th, and this is day 10. The locusts are kind of loud. Last night I stayed in Eureka, and today I'm headed to Chanute. Another medium day, probably about 60 miles or so. Met up with John again for the third time. Every time I see him, I think that's the last time I'm going to see him, and then the next day he catches up to me again and passes me by. Yeah, I'm slowly dropping in elevation as I go toward Missouri. Big step down yesterday out of the Flint Hills. But the Flint Hills has some examples of real high quality tall grass prairie. There's not much of that left. It's all been plowed up. Anyway, I'm headed to Chanute. If I don't get going, I'm not going to get there. So. It is Wednesday morning. It's July 31st, and this is day 11. I'm in eastern Kansas, but I took a day off in Chanute. Spent yesterday holed up in a motel room. Now I got fresh legs, and I'm ready to go. Probably about a day and a half away from Missouri. But I left Chanute this morning bright and early, and I'm headed for Pittsburgh, Kansas, which is just a few miles from the Missouri state line. So tomorrow I'll be in Missouri. It's cloudy today, chance of rain, and hopefully it'll stay cool. Yeah, eastern Kansas has just a completely different feel to it than western Kansas. The climate is wetter, the vegetation is greener, the air is more humid. It doesn't feel as harsh. It feels more like home. But I think the rain's about stopped, so it's time for me to head down the road. I think I'm going to get wet today, but I might luck out. You never know. It is Thursday, August 1st, and this is day 12, heading east. Ended up in Pittsburgh last night, crossed the state line into Missouri. That's a big step. Kansas, a long state. Now I'm into Missouri, and next thing is the Ozarks. So I expect it to start getting hilly here the next day or two or three. I'm not sure where I'm going today. I think I'm going to Ash Grove, but there's nothing there but camping in the city park. So I might be camping in the city park tonight. Sign said road closed, but I just kept going. It's a nice thing about being on a bike. A lot of time road closed signs only pertain to cars, not bikes. Anyway, it's good to be in Missouri. Time to get down the road. But I pulled into Ash Grove, Missouri, thinking I was going to have to camp out in the city park. So when I got to the city park, I met a man who said I could stay in this house. It's a historical house built in the 1800s, old farmhouse, and basically I got the place to myself. I strongly recommend staying in Ash Grove at the city park. It's a great hostel, and it's free. Ash Grove, Missouri. Welcome to the Show Me State. Wow. Hey, it's Friday. It's August 2nd, and this is day 13. Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore. Crossed the state line into Missouri yesterday, and I noticed it started getting more hilly. It went from kind of a flat, rolling landscape to a much hillier landscape. And toward the end of the day, those hills were pretty steep. Not real long, just short and steep, but I've got a feeling that's just a sign of things to come. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to be non-stop hills for the next 4 days. I'm headed to Marshfield today. A real nice little town. It's gonna be kind of a short day, but I'm setting myself up for a longer day with bigger hills tomorrow. A lot of cozy, little quaint little towns in southwest Missouri, like Walnut Grove. The real America, not the touristy Hollywood America. Anyway, I'm headed across Missouri, right through the heart of the Ozark Mountains. It is Saturday morning, August 3rd, and this is day 14 from Pueblo. I'm in southwest Missouri, the Show Me State. I stayed in Marshfield last night, and today I'm headed to Houston, Missouri. Yeah, not Houston, Texas, Houston, Missouri. Anyway, yesterday was kind of a short day, only did 47 miles, but it was a tough 47 miles. It was all up and down hills, a lot of short, steep hills. Today promises to be more of the same. Seems like Kansas and Missouri are like opposites of each other. Kansas was flat with no trees, lots of wind, straight roads. Missouri, not flat, it's hilly, lots of trees. Kansas, the roads had big fat shoulders. So far the Missouri roads are windy with no shoulders. But the winds died down. Still don't have a tailwind, but it's a pretty little Saturday morning, and I got miles to go, and I'm gonna get as many miles done this morning as I can. So would you rather fight hills or fight wind all day? I don't know, I think I'll take the hills. Wind is tough. You know, the wind never gets tired. The wind just blows and blows, and if you're fighting the wind all day, there's never a reward. It's just headwind. But if you're fighting the hills, you kind of make up for it with the downhill. The thing about the wind is the wind eventually kind of averages out. You know, some days you got headwind, some days you got tailwind, some days you got crosswind, and you can't always pick. And if you bike tour long enough, eventually it all kind of evens out. But I used to avoid big hills, try to go around them, find an easier way. But I'm going straight through the Ozarks. Embrace the hills. Yeah, it's one thing to be pedaling down a nice flat road with a light breeze. It's just a nice, easy ride. The miles just melt away. But when you're riding up a hill, especially a steep hill, it's a whole different kind of riding. It gets my heart and my lungs just burning. Do enough of those in a day, by the end of the day, your legs are tired. Well, that's Missouri, or at least this part of Missouri. By the time I get to Chester, on the other side of the Ozarks, my legs are going to be so strong. They're going to be like pistons. It is Monday morning, August the 5th, and this is day 15. I left Houston this morning and I'm headed to Ellington. It's gonna be a long, hilly day. Started off kind of cool though, the low 60s, and there was a little bit of fog in the valleys, which made it pretty this morning. A nice sunrise. Yeah, I took a rest day in Houston, Missouri yesterday. Get me some fresh legs. Right before I go up these hills, let my legs rest. Gotta let the muscles repair themselves, store up some glycogen, get refueled, recharged, reinvigorated. You know, fresh legs. Anyway, I'm headed right through the heart of the Ozarks today. So it's gonna get hilly, it's gonna get steep, but that's all right. That's what I came for. The roads through the Ozarks are notorious for being windy and narrow and having almost no shoulder, so I gotta be careful. Plan on lightening the load just a little bit. I'm gonna stop up here in Summersville at the post office and mail some items home. Maybe some extra clothes, some cooking gear that I don't use. But if I can get rid of 5 or 10 pounds of gear, that's 5 or 10 pounds less stuff that I have to schlep over these hills. But it's still a long way to Ellington, and I got a lot of hills between here and there. Some steep ones. So I gotta get rolling down the road. I'm in the Ozarks, in Missouri, the Show Me State. It is Tuesday, August 6th, and this is day 16. I'm in the middle of the Ozarks. I left Ellington this morning, bright and early, and I'm headed toward Farmington. It's gonna be about 65 miles today, nothing but hills. Just another day in the Ozarks, but the Ozarks are pretty. A lot of forests, kind of an oak and pine mixed forest. Yesterday I went through part of the Ozark Scenic Riverway. The Current River and the Jacks Fork are two rivers that are definitely worth floating. I went past part of the Mark Twain National Forest. Missouri's got a lot of state conservation areas like the Johnson Shut-ins. But I'm on my way to Farmington. I gotta get over these hills for now. So just one hill at a time. Got a long way to go, but I got all day to get there. It is Wednesday, August 7th, and this is day 17. But I left Farmington this morning bright and early, and I'm headed for Chester, Illinois. It's going to be a relatively short day, only about 50 miles or so. But from Chester, I'm just one day away from home. So I'm kind of like riding in my own backyard right now. All the really big hills are behind me. I'd say the toughest hills are between Eminence and Ellington. It's about a 27-mile stretch. And now I'm headed toward the river. You know, the river. You know which river I'm talking about. Big highlight for today, across the Mississippi River. Bridge that goes over the river to Chester is a really old bridge. Yeah, it's 2 lanes, it's real narrow. So if you're crossing the Chester Bridge, just be careful. But yeah, the Chester Bridge is kind of hairy. Just go slow, traffic will wait for you, and you'll be glad when you get over it. Chester is the home of Popeye. The guy who created Popeye was born there, so they got the whole town dressed up like Popeye. Anyway, we're winding this tour down. I got one more day to go after this one, and then I'll be in Carbondale, homeward bound. It's Thursday, August the 8th, and this is my 18th day, Pueblo to Carbondale. It's my last day. Crossed the Mississippi River yesterday at Chester. Now I'm in Illinois, land of Lincoln. I'm at the Middle Mississippi River National Wildlife Refuge. I'm on my way to Carbondale, the home of SIU, Southern Illinois University. It's a happening place. There's 3 bike shops and an outdoor store all within 2 blocks of downtown. I'm at a place called Spanish Bluff. Behind me there's an inscription in Spanish, and so this road is called Spanish Bluff Road. This is my last day of bike touring for the summer, and I'm literally in the home stretch. I'm about 5 miles from my house. I live about 20 miles outside of Carbondale, way out in the country, and I'm going to finish up this bike tour in the next 5 miles or so. Well, I got to get going, because my sweetheart's waiting for me. A good bike tour ends on your own front porch. Anyways, thanks for watching. Now go ride your bike.